Hey everybody, Dave here. Hope you're having an awesome day. So, this week's build is super cool. I am participating in Monster Bash 5, and if you're not sure what that is, it is hosted by Conjured Craft, and what they have done is they have created over 200 prompts, and you go in and you pick six, and the six that you pull is what you have to build a monster from. And I've got my six cards, so let's look at them and let's go make something awesome. Come on, let's do it. All right, here's what I drew. I got the sign, some acidic bubbles, a poison bottle, a skeleton, a sword, and some tentacles. And here's some supplies. I got a little skeleton there. I got these tentacles from a Star Wars toy. I think they'll come in handy. I've got this sword that I found at a yard sale for 50 cents. I need to buy that, and I'll make those too. So I bought this little glass bottle at Hobby Lobby, and it was half off, so I think they're going to work perfect. I had this little skeleton. It was too small, so I bought this bigger one. Too big. Buzz Lightyear, not posable enough. I had this Zerg, and I thought, ooh, the skeleton-type hands might work. And then I was like, no, you know what? I have a McFarlane toy, so I pulled that out, and I was like, ooh, this might be perfect. So I'm going to pop the head off, and I'll use some Super Sculpey to kind of sculpt the head out. And I'm using the McFarlane head for the proportions. So I've kind of blocked out the skull and the jaw, and I'm just looking to make sure that it feels right. And then start sculpting down the head, poking in some eye sockets, the nose holes here, and putting on some eyebrows. Now, at first, these eyebrows, they look a little cartoony and a little bit goofy. But once you start sculpting it out, it really starts to take on the shape and feel of the drawing from the card. Now, this is a fun project because I got to do some sculpting, some toy bashing, and some diorama building. So I'm really enjoying this. But the jaw, I kind of struggled at first. It was not quite working, and then I went and looked at some reference, and I was like, oh yeah. So just a little tip: go find resources, and it will help you understand what you're creating. A lot of times, what you think in your head is not actually what is happening in real life. So sometimes slow down, look at some resources, and it makes your life a lot easier. So for the teeth, I went ahead and I did poke some little holes into the jawline, and those teeth dropped in a little bit better. The skull has not been baked yet, so the teeth are really easily moved around, and so I had to be really careful here. Did the little cleft in his chin to match the drawing, and then I'm using my little tool here to do some cranium lines, and this really kind of adds to the skull effect. I'm going to drop some eyeballs in. Here's looking at you, kid. Just align that up. Take my sculpting tool and poke the little pupils in. And then once it's baked, it looks really cool. I can't wait to paint this thing up. So I am going to paint the main body silver, but there are some bone areas. So I went ahead and masked that because it'll just be easier to paint if it's not the silver spray paint. So I did a couple of coats of white, and then anywhere that I thought was bone, added some additional white, and then I went ahead and did a black wash over all the silver, and this really kind of toned down the sheen of the silver and gave it this aged, weathered look. Then with some kiwi shoe polish, I made a little brown wash and painted it over all the white areas. And again, it looks a little strange now, but once you start patting it down and once it dries, it really gives this aged bone look, and I think it looks really nice. The spine here was actually just a piece that popped into the back, I think mainly so it would fit into the packaging. So I went ahead and put that in, doing a little bit of extra detail work here. We'll paint up the eyeballs, and then for the pupil, I took a guitar string, dipped it in black, and then very carefully just dabbed it right into the pupils. And I think that worked out really well. Okay, for the base, I wasn't sure what to do exactly. This is the part of the build where I was kind of a little bit stuck, and you just have to keep going and work through it. I wanted the figure to be on a bank of a swamp, and maybe there's this, I'm calling him my swamp Kraken, and he was attacking him, And so he's pouring out poison into the water to kill the swamp kraken. And so I thought I need some height to this, so I liked the rock that I could put his foot on. It gave him a little bit more, maybe a dynamic pose. So I'm just taking this pink foam and I'm carving it down, putting some textures on it. I used some Super 77 to hold this all together and just glued that rock down. And then I'll use some lightweight spackle to kind of fill these little cracks, because if you don't fill the cracks when you paint it, it will show. At this point, I was really dreading the swamp part because I didn't know exactly what to do. I know resin takes about 72 hours to cure, and I had to go on a work trip, and so I'm finishing this up on a Friday and Saturday when I got back from my work trip, and I knew I wouldn't have time for that. So this whole time in my brain, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this swamp material. So here I'm just kind of laying out the tentacles using some hot glue, and I just pressed it in, and it held really, really nice. For the poison bottle, I went ahead and drew out a skeleton to kind of match the drawing on the card that I pulled. Took it into Photoshop, made up a little weathered label, printed out these little small pieces here, hit the edge with a black marker just so it would kind of hide the white. Used a little bit of Elmer's glue, got it into place, and man, that is a cool little poison bottle. Okay, so for the sign, I'm using a piece of scrap balsa wood, and I can scribe with a pencil really easily. So what this does is this will give the illusion of maybe 3 planks of wood. And then I'm cutting out a little corner here just to give some irregularity of the planks of wood. And then I'll carve some little nicks and chunks taken out of the sides of the wood. And that gives a really nice effect. I use the same brown shoe polish to weather this thing up as though it's been sitting in the swamp forever. Now for the lettering, I'm going to use a laser print that I made that says Danger Swamp Kraken. And I saw this on the Craftsman's channel, and what he did was just took a nice layer of Mod Podge, then you lay your material down, let it dry for about an hour, then take a wet toothbrush and start scrubbing that away. And wow, this is like super cool, and I'm going to use this more often, but I got a little happy with the brushing, so I scrubbed away a little bit too much, so I went ahead and hand painted over the top, and I think it actually gave it a little bit cooler effect. Now, typically I would do a spray paint of the entire thing black, but it's snowing here in Colorado at the end of October, so I'll do this painting by brush, and you can see here I'm just adding some little details here and there, just nothing major yet. I'll do a little bit of weathering and stuff later, but first I want to figure out how to do this little swamp. So I did some UV along the edge, brushed it, cured it, then I did one complete layer over the whole thing and cured that. And then I made some little bubbles with my hot glue gun because I need to make that little bubbling up effect from one of the cards that I pulled. So I made that, and then I laid it down inside where the Kraken is, and then I'm going to lay another layer of resin over the top, kind of get everything adjusted, and that's looking pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and UV cure this. And I'm going and carefully peeling away the tape because I've never done this before, and it's not amazing, but it's actually better than I thought it was going to be. So did a little bit of cleanup work, adding a couple of little details and weathering with some grass. I'm going to throw my sign in here, and we are going to wrap this one up. Okay, so first I want to say thank you to Contra Craft for kind of putting this all together. Check out all the links below for all the other builders. Super cool stuff. And there were a few points where I was like, I have no clue where this is going to go, but in the end it turned out pretty cool. I learned some new things. I'm not a master at any of them by any means, but you gotta learn sometime, right? So hey, let's do some turnaround shots of this thing, and as always, it's a great day to be a toy nerd. Have a great one.